Can you hear us now? Yeah.
Can you hear us now? Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so we said some really important things that people online, unfortunately, will not be able to hear. So it's great. If my department head is on there, then that we were good. All right. So this year, so I'll talk a little bit about very quickly about the format because I know you want to listen to the students, not me. I'll talk a little bit about the format of this class. So this is a capstone class for the game development concentration. And so these are students who go through an entire computer science degree and satisfy every single requirement for that degree. In addition to that, they take all of the games related courses, several of them, and some interdisciplinary courses, and they do an extra project on top. And most of them, almost all of them, are able to do it in 4 years. So it's an elite course in that sense, and it represents a lot of hard work, and that is an understatement. Like it's hard work, and you will see that. You will see that the passion that goes into these projects is amazing. But we can't do this alone, right? We have a lot of support. We have all of the audio that you will hear is original. Almost all of the artwork is original. Many years ago when I was a student, we did a lot of programming, or we did a lot of programmer art. There is no such thing as programmer art these days. We have technical artists that are strong technically and strong artistically, and we are proud of that, and that shows. And so I would want you to see that come up. We collaborated with the UNC School of the Arts, which is in Winston-Salem, not the one in Chapel Hill, the one in Winston-Salem. They are an extremely strong film school, and they have an audio program, but their audio sound engineers and audio composers and so on do not get a lot of experience working with interactive settings. So they usually kind of do the scoring and stuff for the film program independently of the production team mostly, right? And so Professor Wade Wilson, who is their teacher and couldn't be here because unfortunately he was not feeling well this morning, reached out to me a few years ago and said, we want to do something with games. And so we started this collaboration, and it's been going really well, as you will also hear, not just see. We also have, so one of the things that motivates this class is that it's not just fun in games. There's real world impact, and all of the work that students do is actually appreciated by industry and by our society. And so we really appreciate the support of Red Storm folk. And this is kind of a weird thing that yes, they are from Red Storm, but many of them are also ones who were in this class not too long ago. And so it's great to see them coming back, and they inspire this generation, right? Because they can look at them as role models, as ones who went through the same experiences and now are successfully in the industry continuing to do amazing stuff, right? And so that's great. We also have catabasis, and we'd like to welcome them. And so, so Red Storm is sort of games industry, and Catabasis is games industry, but different flavor of it. Catabasis works on education and broadening education, outreach to people who may not easily have access, as we do in the Wake County here, which we are extremely privileged, our education system, for all the resources that these children going to our K-12 programs in highly well-resourced counties, but then there are other places where children do not have that access, and so Katabasis actually provides that through really innovative programs, and so we are very thankful to them, and it also, we are thankful that they're giving us the opportunity to take the work that these students do and then creating a pathway for social impact this directly. And so so this has been an amazing collaboration. We've had it for a few years. So that's sort of the background. And so that also kind of connects to some of the background of the games that you will see. Games in this class, every year there is a theme or a prompt or a constraint that is given to students. Sometimes it is make a multiplayer game. Sometimes it is to make a virtual reality or an augmented reality experience. This year, the prompt was to express systems thinking and decision making under uncertainty as part of the interaction of gameplay. So you will see that all of these games, or how all of these games are looking at completely different systems, completely different mechanics, but are expressing this idea of how to bring out systems thinking as the user is interacting with their whatever system they're simulating, right? Or expressing. And so that is one kind of important point to mention. If you have ideas for future class themes, I would be welcome to hear that, because over the years I have started running out of them. My creativity is sort of dwindling, and that is why I'm thankful for the sponsors, because they provide some of that as well. So in terms of the actual process, it's pretty straightforward. Our class runs as a studio class, which is not very common in the engineering departments, but it's more common in the arts and design programs, where we just are in class for 3 hours. Students sit down, work with their teams, and then I just walk about. I get my 10,000 steps. In those 3 hours, I don't have to do much. And that's sort of the process. In order to, there are two sort of phases. There's an initial phase where every single student thinks about the prompt and proposes a game idea. So we had 20 students this year, and we had 20 game ideas that were all sort of individual. We then communicated those ideas and discussed with our sponsors and chose 4 ideas that students had to develop further. After these 4 were chosen, we created teams based on, not based on sort of student preferences, but based on how their skills and past experiences and interests in developing a particular skill, be it art, 2D or 3D art, gameplay, engine programming, shading, develop a specific skill, we put them into teams. And so they did not choose their team members, we did. They also prepared their portfolios, and well, this year we couldn't do this, but they had interviews with me to get into those positions. Usually we have the HR departments of our clients sometimes help with mock interviews, which is also an experience that's kind of not very common in college courses. So that's all I have to say. The way the rest of this program is going to be is I'm going to talk first about some of the mini projects that we did. These are like 2-week, very quick projects. It gets students to kind of work together, sometimes unfamiliar students as project partners, but they do a quick mini project while we wait for the individual game designs to be fully developed, right? And so for the mini projects, we gave them prompts related to either making an idle game or a one-button game or a pinball or pachinko-like game. And so I'll show a few of these projects quickly, and then we will I will transition over to the students presenting their projects. So one of these projects was Inflippity. I have to switch to the right one. And so this game is an endless runner, and the idea is that you are a space alien. You can actually play this later. And so this is a one-button game where your button input simply changes the gravity, and so your objective is, in the endless runner, and so these 2-week games are just quick games that we make just to explore the idea. Pinfinity is another one that is a pinball that is mashed with an endless runner, and so you are playing on this pinball machine, and something goes wrong and your ball gets flung up into space. And now you have to keep it up. I'm going to be really horrible at this game. I do not like playing games in front of large audiences, I must say. I appreciate esports player a lot, because this is not something I can lecture all day, and you do not want to listen to me more than 5 minutes, as you can tell. But that I can do. Then there is another one which is called Morsel Munchers. This is kind of a weird pachinko game where it's a weird pachinko game where you have to feed this alien the food that's falling down, but the red and the purple parts are the parts where it's extra hot, so food goes there, it gets burned, and whatever this critter is not happy with burned food. So you have to move these paddles so that all of the stuff falls just in the right place so that it's cooked just right. And if it's not, then this critter is not happy. That's the whole point. We had several others. There's Wings of Deliverance, so this was the only one that actually was made with the Unreal Engine. So I just wanted to mention that. Oh, Nature was also. Oh, sorry. Alright, I get a B. Nature Pinball. So two projects were made with Unreal. This was one of them. This is kind of interesting. So for those of you who have not done game programming or gone through the computer science curriculum here, we tend to, a lot of the foundational courses cover basics of how to render things with C++, and then how to do AI with whatever the tools they use for AI and so on. But to make games for this at this level, oftentimes you need to work with large game engines and be able to sort of work on top of them or modify them. And so, but these are not actually taught in the curriculum. So in these courses, usually I give them an option to choose the engine that is the one that is most appropriate for whatever game they're making. Sometimes students will pick an engine because they want more experience with it, or they want to do some very specific thing with it, like learn how to do a gameplay systems or so on. And so they choose it because they want to learn more about it. And it goes into their portfolio, which improves their chances of getting jobs that explicitly want that kind of experience. So we will leave Icarus there. So and the idle game, which I don't seem to have the video of, was a letter sorting game, which maybe we can show later. Where it's so idle games. For those of you who don't know, idle games are actually a fun genre of game where there is a system that basically, if you don't do anything, runs by itself, but you can make it more efficient by tweaking it. And so you sort letters in this game. What's interesting is that I brought my daughters to class one time, and then like my younger one was sorting letters for like 20 minutes or something. Just wouldn't want to leave the. And literally, the game is it's amazingly made. 3 colored boxes and letters pop up with 3 stamps, and you put them in the right box. But you can buy upgrades after you have enough. So then you get packages, and you get even more of whatever the score is, and it's entirely that. That is what an idle game is. It's like if you are idle, you have nothing to do, you can play that for hours, and you can keep idling. Anyway, so we will look at that later. So I have taken up almost 20 minutes of your time, which is no more than I needed to take. So I'm gonna pause here, and we will go through the presentations in alphabetical order. Again, like my creativity is failing me. So, and I'm a computer scientist, so this is an easy way to sort things. So we will start with Apimancer, and please give a big hand to. Introduce yourselves, and then.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adam.
My name's Thomas.
I'm Jackson. Isaiah. I'm Alex.
And we are Team B.
That is us.
We
didn't rehearse this.
Yes. We have for you a trailer first, and then we're going to get into the actual meat of our presentation. So if you all could direct your attention to the screen. Oh. Oh, no.
Not error 2.
Not error 2.
Favorite error. If you... That's it. There's probably you can pull it up in another window.
There is the YouTube link.
Yes. Let's click
click on the
that.
link.
Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. All right. And that trailer was made by the wonderful Thomas. Let's go back to our presentation. Bop. All right. So, oh, there we go. Apimancer. Meet the team. Oh, what?
It's not happening here.
There are a few bugs in our presentation, it would seem. It's not. It doesn't look like that on my screen.
No, that's just the.
It is a bug. It is a bug.
It's a bug.
Yeah.
We can just look at it from here.
This works.
Yeah. All right.
Or did you actually land?
What?
No,
This
that's
is
a real
land.
That's a live bug.
That's a real bug.
This is my third presentation in as many hours of sleep, and I have not seen that ever. All right, so here's the team. My name is Adam. I pitched the concept for Apimancer. I was the lead on UI design, made the art for the wizards you see in the game, animated them, and all of the UI that you interact with was also my doing.
I'm Jackson. I kind of started out by laying down some of the groundwork for the systems, such as the level editor and stuff, like the selection system and the camera movement and whatnot.
I'm Isaiah. I started working on the sort of the actions that you can actually do in the game, along with working on the pathfinding stuff, so that the different units in the game can actually get to where they need to go.
I'm Alex, and I did a lot of our AI programming, so pretty much any decision that a unit makes in the game, it's actually a decision I made. I just made it in code. And I also did all of our level design.
My name is Thomas. I did pretty much all of the art for the units and the environments, as well as all of those animations, as well as lots of character design ideas and such things. I also made the trailer you guys just watched.
And I believe we have one of our sound designers, Kai, in the audience. Good man.
And shout out Trevor as well, but he could not be here.
Of course. Unfortunately. Yes. But who cares about the game? Let's talk lore.
Yeah.
So, in this world, there are magic users who practice summoning magic. Because of their simple biology, insects are perfect for this. So we have wizards who specialize in summoning huge magical insects. And there is a notorious guild of such wizards, the Sect of N, that have a very rigorous joining process. You must duel their members in one-on-one combat in order to join, and you play as the Apimancer, who summons fuzzy bees to prove that bees are just as good as any other insect, and join the guild. And so you play as them and work your way up in the ranks, so to speak.
So these are a handful of the levels that we have designed, and we'll get to some of the units in a minute, but most of our levels will interact with a few different environment types. As you can see, we have water tiles, lava tiles, grass, we have flowers spawning, and we have rocks. And some of our units can actually change pieces of the environment. You can actually change it with spells as well. But mostly for the actual gameplay loop, you'll want to have units that are harvesting nectar from flowers, which will fuel your magic, and eventually you try and defeat the ant wizard.
A little bit of information on the different summons that exist in the game. There are 3 different units that you can summon as a player, and the enemy can summon as the antagonist, if you will. So we've got this sort of first tier over here where we've got the worker ant and the worker bee, and they both will prioritize going for flowers, which are pretty much your source of honey, which is your source of mana in this game. All of the ones on the right here are going to prioritize going after the Myrmidonist or the Apimancer, respectively, in order to get that KO. They have different things about them, like the bumblebees are super tanky, and they're big, but they don't sting, they just do a little headbutt. We've got the minor bees who they obviously have that big drill on the back where their stinger should ordinarily be, and they will break the otherwise impassable sort of rock walls that are present in the game. The army ant you can tell what that is. And the fire ant, of course, will set everything around it ablaze as it attacks.
So in this game, you can have spells, and the spells are based off of the nectar. So based on how much nectar you have, you can cast various amount of spells. So we have 3. So Honey Trap will make one of the tiles in the level a honey tile, and this honey tile is tied with the honey status. Honey Blast will automatically set honey status to one of the units, to whoever you set it to, and Teleport will simply teleport the wizard that you're controlling to any tolerable tile. want to talk about the various
Yeah, so-
statuses?
So for our hunting status, these are generally favorable for your bees, as you're the Apimancer, and they'll do things like heal your bees and slow ants. Any unit that is wet will also be slowed. Think of your bees' wings being weighed down, and then your burn status will deal damage over time, except for the fire ant, which will be healed, and the Myrmidonus will regain mana.
And so, as for the challenges, obviously, yeah, I haven't worked in like a group this big on a game before, so yeah, I think it's kind of like a first time for all of us. But yeah, so it was a bit hard just at the start, getting everything kind of coordinated, and just getting kind of off the ground, because like Alex over here kind of focused on like the AI and the level design, which obviously needed like a system for all of that stuff to be in place for him to be able to implement those. So yeah, it just took some time to kind of get up and running. But yeah, then yeah, integration was sometimes kind of tough. It was unfortunately Alex didn't get the screenshot, but Alex had like 130 merge complex or something. But yeah, so just dealing with everybody working on like the same things simultaneously can get kind of hectic sometimes, and so yeah, just keeping communication solid was key to not stepping on each other's toes. Also, just the more specific kind of things. The hexagonal grid system in Unity is kind of interesting to work with. So yeah, that was just a little bit of a challenge for us just to get that going. And then the turn management, we definitely had some issues with that, but in the end, yeah, no, we don't have any issues with that. So because it's whatever.
That's a bold statement.
We also have a bit of a gameplay demo. You saw some of it in the trailer, but we have a little bit more here. And so you can hear some of the sounds in the game. So what we have here is the player wizard can move 2 spaces on their turn. That's once per turn. And on the bottom there is an amount of magic. So that's what they're going to use to summon units and cast spells. That will be replenished whenever a worker bee attacks a flower. So the player is encouraged to set up an economy for themselves later down the line. If they summon 3 mining bees on turn 1, they'll have very little economy and be forced to wait several turns while the ant wizard sets up. The ant wizard will also abide by this economy, so they will summon ants as well to fight for them. And they have their own mana as well. So if you cut them off from flowers, you'll be at an advantage because you will have more actions to take on your turn. You can also see the tint, the blue tint on some of the bees. It shows that they have the wet status, and the burn status is applied when anyone steps on a lava tile.
There are also icons representing those status effects if you hover over them, and you can also see their current health and everything like that.
Yeah, so the gameplay loop continues. Each wizard takes their turn, and eventually one of them will die. If the Apimancer dies, the player has lost, and if the Myrmidonus dies, the player has won, and we'll move on to another map with a different layout. And so we can see the Miner Bee has broken some of the rocks and made them passable, which means units can move through. Yes, the army ant has a gun.
Yes.
It is very menacing.
Better watch out.
Ants got hands. 6 of them even.
Yeah. In general, the win condition for all the levels is to defeat the Myrmidonus there at the back. And not be defeated yourself.
Be defeated.
Be defeated, yes.
Yeah, our development process consisted of blacking out for several hours, making bee puns, and then realizing we built a game. It was quite the experience, but yeah, it was It was a great time working with these fellas. We're not gonna play the whole thing because I think we're running short on time a little bit.
Yeah.
So any questions?
Oh yes, I love that question.
Yeah, what's up?
I thought it was really interesting. You guys were talking about how the hexagonal grid posed some issues. Can you talk about some solutions to that, or like how you reconcile the coordinates for that, or that kind of thing?
Sure. Yeah. I think really it just came down to kind of centralizing everything in the. So we had the cell manager, and then the. I don't want to go into like too much detail about the specifics, but so we kind of had like the tile scriptable object, which would like spawn a cell. So the tile would let us paint, like that would let us edit the levels and create the levels. And then the cell manager would manage like the locations of the cells and make it easy to just access the neighboring cells for any particular location on the grid. But yeah, so just kind of centralizing it in the cell manager.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of build off of what he was saying about being able to paint, I mean, Jackson really did a great job setting up the level editor. Pretty much for me to go in and design a level was just the same as opening up Paint and drawing with a pixel pen. I mean, it was that easy.
Basically, he just allowed us to utilize a tangible like coordinate system that we can actually use to represent cells in our game, and it helped it like pretty much for me when I had to like make sure like the actual stuff in the game can actually move from one cell to another, rather than simply dragging an object from here to here, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So you mentioned like problems with like communication, and you overcame it, right?
Mhm.
So what are some of like the solutions that you found to communicate better when like making a game?
One thing we found helpful later on in the development process is weekly meetings. We scheduled weekly meetings with everyone in a Discord call, including our sound designers, so we could touch base on what is done, what are we working on, what sounds do we still need, and that sort of helped us. That helped guide us between lab meetings, because those happen on Saturdays. We just finished 2 days worth of work in lab on Thursdays and Fridays, and so we just kind of gathered ourselves and talked about what sort of a checklist. What do we still need to do? That was probably one of the most helpful communication tactics we employed, was just meetings.
Also, one thing that's like really actually kind of essential is some of our teammates just so happened to be working and also live streaming as well what they were doing as well. So like other team members can actually just drop in and see what progress they're doing in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped.
Yes, we had a voice channel called the Hive. That was the hub of all things development at 2 a.m.
Something else we also did that I think helped sort of show everyone how much progress we were making and stuff is we had a little progress channel where people could just share like kind of what they just finished, and that would sort of be a way to sort of let people know, hey, I'm done working on this thing. Now it can be used for next thing, or here's how this looks. What do we think about that? I think that pretty much covers all the communication stuff. Yeah.
What is your favorite letter grade?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Ooh, do I say the on-brand answer or the actual answer?
Yeah, that's a really
Ah,
I would say my favorite letter grade is A for the Apimancer.
true.
Sound designer.
Come on up here.
Yep.
You want to introduce yourself?
It was an absolute pleasure to bring the pitch I made in my bed the night before with these very talented folks. I'm super proud of the work we did. You all worked very hard. Good job, guys. Round of a hand for the B team. Round of a hand. Good idea. Round of a hand.
he did some good work.
Excellent. Thank you very much, B team. The B team. The B team.
What's your favorite grade?
Alright. Next, we have cell circuit.
Alright.
And is your sound designer here?
I do not know. I don't think so. Don't believe so.
Okay. Well, we haven't actually physically or even on a call seen sound designers, all of them. So
We know their voices. Their sound, if you will.
Well, their sound, yeah.
All right. Here we go. So before we get started, we're going to also show a little bit of a trailer of our game.
Error 2
again.
Love to see error 2.
What do I do?
You just top right corner. Click right here, and then and then that way.
Gotcha. All right.
Did it get moved up there?
Wait, how did I get it? Oh,
Trevor's an easy.
All right. Do we just want to go back into the slideshow?
Yes, that works.
So yeah, this is our game, Cell Circuit, where you're driving around the human body. You play as blood cell puns incoming. Luco, short for leukocyte, he's a diligent white blood cell riding his trusty monocycle around the human body. Your job is to protect the human that you reside in, Thomas, as you can see sprinting there down below. Thomas goes about his daily activities, each of which are 4 different ones. He is exercising, as you can see there. He has his resting, where he's laying down sleeping. He's eating, or he's working. Depending on which one of those he's doing, his heart rate will change or be higher or lower. That affects how fast you drive around the body. Luco must also plan his routes carefully to make sure that he can reach all the organs in a timely manner, because you're trying to make sure that you keep all the organs healthy across the entire body.
So, the system for our game in this case is the system of the human body. So you're trying to maintain the body the whole time and make sure everything is oxygenated. So it is a single-player game where you race against the clock to make sure that Thomas's organs are kept oxygenated. It's a whole method of getting as quickly as possible to gather unoxygenated blood cells, oxygenate them at the lungs, and then deliver those to Thomas's organs to make sure his organs don't start failing. Because if they do, that will have detrimental effects on the track. So once you get your hands on oxygenated blood cells, they'll begin orbiting around the player like green shells in Mario Kart, and you can chuck them at organs to oxygenate them, keep their health high.
And speaking of those organs, some of the organs that we have implemented from Thomas's body himself are the stomach, liver, and hearts, and lungs. So the stomach, if it starts failing, it will start spawning acid pools around the track, which will slow down the player. The liver will start generating cholesterol if it's failing, which will block the player and impede its progress. And then the heart acts as the main lose condition, where if the heart dies, you die as well. As long as you keep the organs alive, Thomas will be happy and alive. We also have those pulmonary muscles, which will speed up the player. We have our speed boosters that turn on and off, depending on if those muscles are alive or not. And the lungs then oxygenate the blood cells to actually be able to use them to fill up your health. And yeah, so on this little screen here, you can see like our different little objects and what they represent. So in the top right corner, you got your organ health, which will keep track of like what organs are possibly failing at that time. And then, of course, the very important Thomas activity meter, which will, as Duncan described a little bit, will raise your heart rate depending on which activity Thomas is actually doing. and speed up the player.
Also, do you want to go over roles?
Oh yeah, we
yeah,
did
so-
start off with that.
Let's go ahead and do that now. So, my name is Duncan. I was the original creator of this project idea, and I was the main programmer, mostly systems and gameplay, and I did a little bit of 2D art, so these UI icons.
Hello, my name is Karthik. I worked on some of the 3D art. This was the first time I was modeling, so Mitchell helped me out a lot with that, and I did a lot of shaders and kind of materials for the whole game.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Mitchell. I was the primary 3D artist on this. I did the characters, a lot of the environment stuff, helped Karthik out with some of the shaders and stuff like that. I also ended up falling into more of a director role, trying to kind of organize the team, be a producer, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Haley. I did most of the pickup things that you'll find on the track, as well as some of the AI that is not in our final game, but also the stomach model.
Hi, my name is Jackson. I did a lot of the programming too, specifically gameplay stuff, but also the UI, like some of the organs, the driving, drifting, stuff like that, and also some systems like pausing, losing the game, stuff like that. So here are the major mechanics in the game. So to start off, here's a clip of us. I think this will work.
Error 2 yet again.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're gonna have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We got a lot of videos for these.
We have a lot of these right now.
Okay, so here starts off showing some drifting and just how it is to drive around the track. You see our track is like anti-gravity, kind of like Mario Kart 8, where everything's not completely flat and has all these curves going sideways, upside down, all this stuff like this. You can see the red speed boosts. So you can see the player drifting now with the trail behind them. Green is the highest level of drift, and then you get speed boost after that, and they continue just drifting throughout the track. And you will see shortly, they should start collecting blood cells. Like here, they come to you when you drive near them, but they sort of unoxygenated, which is why they're grayed out in the thing. But this just shows a bit more driving around and stuff like that. You can look at the next video in a sec. Yeah, you see real quick, you can like reverse a bit here, stuff like that. But we'll move on to the next part.
We have a fun unintentional game mechanic called the donut speed boost,
Yep.
where if you hold the accelerate button and the brake button and the drift button all at the same time, you will quickly spin in a circle, and then releasing drift makes you accelerate at full speed, as if you had been drifting normally, like in Mario Kart. So it doesn't really come up that often as being useful, but it sure is fun.
Yes.
It was totally intentional. What are you talking about?
One instance where it's actually useful is here where you oxygenate cells. So see the player starts up with like 11 unoxygenated cells. When they drive through this grass, it starts slowly oxygenating the cells. They can actually be used to restore organs of the health. So you can see right now they're just driving around a bit, and they're going to another patch of this grass, which is really nice and moves around you. And they just think right here, and they see these cells slowly oxygenate themselves, and they start to spin around the player like the Mario Kart blue shells, and then they're able to be used for healing cells.
So, Karthik, what are these bronchial grass that we're seeing here, and how's that working?
Yeah, so fun little fact, all of this grass we just got functioning last night. It was the alveoli that you saw in the trailer that we had previously, but we had some issues with that because there's a lot of physics interactions just happening throughout the map. So what grass does, it helps get everything just happening in one space, and we just have one collider that's surrounding the grass, so it's just one trigger that we have to check. So the whole grass is a shader that I was working on. It's also part of what I'm doing for my advanced graphics class, so it's cool to actually integrate something I was working in another class here. Yeah.
Next up, we also have some organ functionality. So you start off here seeing the pulmonary muscle, which activates the speed boost, really dead. So we're going to throw some blood cells at like blue shells. You see that health slowly go up, and then now you actually get a speed boost and do the wheelie when you go on it. Then here's the heart organ right here, the red one, and throwing that restores the health of the heart. It goes really low. You bump into these to get unoxygenated blood cells back that you've already used. You can see, sorry about that driving, but we oxygenate the pulmonary muscle, and then get the speed boost, go through the track much faster. And as we drive, you're gonna start slowly noticing some effects from the organs here. So it takes a minute driving through it normally, but you'll start to see this green acid pool, which will slow you down, which is created when the stomach is low health within 30 or less. And then that's going to slow you down. It starts spawning more and more, and your goal is to reach other organs and oxygenate them to prevent them from happening like this. keep going, you'll see a bit more oxygenated gameplay.
So you'll notice up in the top right that the stomach health bar is all the way down. And so when the stomach health bar is below 30%, that's when these acid pools and for the liver, other cholesterol blockers will start to form. So basically the idea is try and keep all of the organs at tip-top shape, but if one starts to fail, it's not game over. It's just a little bit of a hindrance until you can catch it back up.
Yep, right there at the end, he threw some blood cells at the oxygen receptor for the stomach, which healed it up a little bit. And once it gets above 30% health, the acid pools it generated will start to disappear and clean up the body again.
And this is our favorite slide.
Yeah, our favorite slide right here.
This is our last gameplay showing off the Thomas daily activity thing. So you start seeing look in the bottom corner, and you will see him eating invisible food.
Invisible sandwich, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks to a live demonstration.
And you see, and then you see the speed where you see it's like going higher, up to 90 the speed, and you can see it in a second. So he starts running, which makes it way faster to the point where it's much harder to control. Organs die faster, which everything just moves faster, and you have to control yourself better and get the organs faster so they don't die quicker. So like this, and then I'll just skip around a bit to get to next change. So now he starts. Working. Sorry. Yeah, we're getting to the laptop. You see the speed goes down again, not quite as fast as it was when it was running. And we cut to resting, which is the last state, which is the slowest speed. You're sitting there. But yeah, the track will automatically change. I think it's every 30 seconds to a different mode. And you just have to keep adjusting your gameplay based on what this activity is.
Alright, so we got some small showcases of some of the work that we put in that Karthik and I did on the art side that we kind of want to go over.
Yeah.
So I'll start with Karthik on VFX and shaders.
Yeah, so the acid pool was a big part of our game. So for quite a bit of time, I was working on the acid shader for our game, and it turned out to be a little buggy towards the end of the project. I know Haley was working on that today, just getting it functioning in the game. And I also did some modeling. Mitchell really helped me out with the cell receptacle model. And I was also learning particle effects, so the cells that you see inside the bubbles, I worked on as well.
And they all turned out really well.
Yeah,
Thank
they look great.
It says click to add title up there. That's a reference to the original title of our game.
Original title.
We couldn't think of one, so we asked ChatGPT, give us names for a game where you're racing around the body.
Yeah.
And it said cell circuit.
Cell circuit, vascular velocity.
Vascular velocity was another top choice.
Yeah, and also just to put everything together, I implemented some cell shading. So this was what we had in the earlier stages. I have it working with different point lights. And we also have the kind of bubble that you saw in the cell receptacle earlier, just interacting with other objects.
These shaders were awesome to work with on my side. I did not have to do very much texture work at all. The only texture work I did have to do is on my stuff, this right here. This is the main character, Luco, and his monocytal. So they were based on kind of white blood cells, kind of an Osmosis Jones feel is what I was trying to go for, but a little bit more colorful and fun. So I just spent a lot of time trying to get the design down. Then I moved on to doing modeling. And then I took him from that into a program called Mixamo, where you can use free open source motion capture animations, and then gave him some animations for the game. And so I'm sure everyone's
freaking out. Let's freaking out.
On this slide, come on, this is the best one.
Yeah,
all right, so
we can try
I'm sure
it.
everyone's interested to see how I got Thomas, this living human being, and digitized him and put him into our game. So I used a handy-dandy 3D scanning software called Polycam. I took some nice pictures of him doing his different motions. You can see him running, resting there, down at the bottom. I used 3D scanning with Polycam, though, and took him and digitized him in this 3D model right here that you can see. And then if you go to the next slide, I went and uploaded that to Mixamo, so you can kind of get an idea of how that works. You can select from thousands of animations, so I just picked the 4 that kind of matched what we needed. And then once I was done with that, we have a working Thomas here.
I forgot you had that music.
As a background for why we have Thomas in our
explain
game,
that.
So he was originally on our team, but we did not have any 3D modelers on our team, and this is a pretty heavy 3D modeling game.
Yeah.
So we ended up exchanging Thomas for Mitchell here. But as a tribute to him being on our team, we still put him in the game.
Right here. Yeah.
All right, so any questions?
Yes.
So did you guys have, like, your biology knowledge going in, or did you guys have to do research for this concept?
I knew a lot going in. I kind of did jump in a lot of the design things and try to push stuff. Like I forget what our original idea for the lungs was, but it was like a big ball that you just ran into, sort of like the cell receptacles. And then I was like, well, it's bronchioles are like these branching sort of tree patterns, so maybe try and do something more plant-like, like grass. We started out with that implementation that Jackson did, kind of on a rush order, like in like 2 hours or something, to try and get our ECGC demo, which was great. It worked. It was awesome. Then luckily Karthik was already working on a grass shader for his graphics project, so it just turned out awesome. But yeah, there was a little bit of research involved, especially for those name puns that I made. I had to go kind of hunt around Wikipedia for that. But yeah.
Did you go in going, okay, this is going to be kind of like Mario Kart with Osmosis Jones, or did you have a moment where you're like, oh my god, Mario Kart?
Duncan?
Yeah, Duncan. Honestly, I was not aware of Osmosis Jones before making this presentation. The most I knew about traveling inside the human body was like that one Magic School Bus episode. I think
that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
I learned for Osmosis Jones.
Yeah, I learned about Osmosis Jones from this guy.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
We never got around to watching it as a group. Yeah.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Next is Taverners.
I'm going to press the buttons.
You got the sticks.
Okay.
Okay, so introduce everybody first, right?
Yep.
Hello, we are Taverner, a tavern idol or story game. I'm Alex Boots.
I'm Alexandra or Ellie, however you know me. That's me.
My name is Claire.
I'm Isaac.
Yeah, and shout out to our sound designers who couldn't come, Parker and Up. So, yeah, this is a Taverner. So to get started, I primarily focused on a lot of the 2D artwork that's in the game. So that pretty much means that like all the character design and character sprites were all done by me. This is an example of most of my work. I did idle animations for a lot of the guys, and I designed all of them. Thankfully, the writers gave me little prompts for everyone. But then I just started pumping out a bunch of different character designs. I also did the man himself. Don't ignore the ugly. Don't look at the frames. It look better in the game. But this is a Taverner. I also did little emotes for him, for little mini games to show how well you did. And I gave him his questionable walk cycle, and there's some other animations that I did for him. They're all just sprite sheets, so it's just really basic pixel animation. Yeah, and I did different versions of him carrying things, and I did our like little 2D like food sprites and everything. Yeah, so that was my main job. I think my like biggest challenge was doing the sprites was mainly just time, because art takes time, the animation takes time. So as we got more content written, I also had to take that content that we got and be like, okay, what is this going to look like in game? And then make animations for it and make sure it all looked okay and made sure that it all sort of like fit our setting and everything. But other than that, it was a really fun role to play. I always like doing art for games, and I'm an art and design minor, so if I can have any excuse to do that instead of programming, I probably will take it. And I kind of did for this project.
Yeah, so I did pretty much all of the story writing and dialogue. So I was working in Twine, which if you've never used it before, it's a kind of like text adventure game type thing, where you have all these notes. So it had about 250 passages in total across the 3 days. And then we used Yarn Spinner to integrate those into Unity for our dialogue. In terms of primary challenges, just kind of figuring out how in the world a choice-based narrative has to really come together. especially when you're coming out with like 3 different endings and just writing a mystery, kind of that whodunit, just was a bit of a new experience, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
So my main role in the project was the 3D models or the tavern itself, and a lot of this was, what is this game going to feel like? How are you going to interact with it? Okay, there's a story, but what are you going to be doing to interface with that story? And so for this first step, I just opened up Blender, mocked up a layout, and looked at it from different angles and thought, where would the text be? Where would the people be? Where would mini games be? How would it feel to play? Can go on.
Yeah.
And here's some pretty funny pixel art adaptations. We're like, okay, what if it's all 2D? What if some is 2D, some is 3D? So we were playing with that concept in the beginning.
Oh no. Oh, hold on. Yeah. I'm not going to full screen it again. We can just keep going.
And then, yeah, a lot of it leads into making more refined models, texturing them. We went for this style of 3D assets with low-res 2D textures to merge between those worlds. This was really helpful. Near the end of the project, we completely changed our camera view from a more top-down perspective to more side-on, and if it was 2D assets, that would have been a nightmare. And with the 3D, we've been able to do last-minute scene adjustments based on player feedback, and it's been very easy to extend the project.
Oh. It's good. It's good. It's good.
No,
It
settled on the wrong one.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you should.
hold on. I got it. Well, not full screen. It's fine.
Just keep slide.
Did I?
It leads into
No, it's good. Do you want to talk about it here?
Yeah, no, that's good. Just more models and tavern layouts.
Great.
Yes. So, a big challenge in this project that you'll hear from everyone is we all had really big tasks, like writing a full story, making art for all our characters, that were hard to integrate halfway through or like a tenth of the way through. And we had these big questions. Yeah, like, okay, well, how is our minigames going to integrate with the story? And it feels like you have to plan all this out at the beginning, but then we're just planning and talking about like fairy dust that doesn't exist yet, and it goes in a cycle, and you just have to make stuff and then see how it turns out. And once we actually got our wheels spinning and produced stuff, all the integration came to fruition.
Yeah.
You can see kind of different. We ended up in kind of different pillars of development, I'll say, with like one person focusing on mini games and 3D assets, one person focusing on story, one person focusing on 2D assets, and one person focusing on like the moment-to-moment gameplay and tying everything together. So you can kind of see the different branches here. A couple of them. We've got a mini game up top, and then some prototypes with moment-to-moment gameplay on the bottom.
And we all brought it together about like 2 hours before ECGC started.
Yeah.
So we just crunched at the end. Do you want to talk about this stuff, Isaac?
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was saying already, but we had to do a lot of thinking about like how do we show what customers want to eat. So we ended up with this thought bubble system where they just kind of show you an image form what food they want to order at the moment, and they'll also give you feedback about whether they're happy or like devil angry on top. And then on the bottom is a much more recent version of the tavern as it was coming together. We went through like several different versions of the main tavern room.
We eventually settled on this. Pretty much.
Yeah, so here
Minus
you
a
can
few
see the main bar in front where customers come in from the door on the side. They show up and they ask for a meal, and then you can go into the kitchen on the other side and make it for them and bring it back out. And then it's not shown in the picture, but I think it's in the videos later on. But you can also stop and talk to all of these people to tie it back into the the mystery story.
Yeah. Alright, let's see if these videos work.
Yeah, so
I'll just
have
play on.
yeah. Might have to do the
Yeah, there you go.
So these are 2 videos showing the mini games. So this first one is pouring the beer. It depends on like how well you do. There's like beer on either side, and it depending on like the color, it tells you which one the customer wants.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. There's like a light beer on the left and a dark beer on the right. And then the way the minigame designer set it up for us was
Get a little slow-mo going here.
you can nice slow. Okay, so the mug fills up gradually, and if you stop it too early or too late, you either get an under or overfilled drink, and the customer doesn't like that. But here we stopped it on time, and they did like it.
And then our second mini game was Boots' little masterpiece here.
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So this was an overambitious start to the project where I was like, we're going to have all these really cool, unique mini games. This was a vegetable and fish chopping one where you can slice at any point, and I had grand aspirations that it was going to be a rhythm game, and you'd have a mini song playing, and then there'd be notes at the bottom, and it was just going to be one small part of the dozen mini games I created. And then I realized it was really difficult, and these systems were hard to use, and doing something that hasn't been done before is really difficult. And a couple weeks later, I was like, I need to get to the rest of this game, and it's going to have to be what it is. Yeah, and it's fun now, and it looks cool, and with more time, it could be better integrated. But yeah.
Right now, the way it is integrated is you just have to bring over 2 fish and a carrot to the station beforehand, and then you can do the mini game with them. And when you do the mini game, then you get soup afterwards.
I probably cut the clips a little bit short, but was trying to be good for presentations.
That's okay.
And also hide the fact that I'm very bad at our game. Yeah, so this is just kind of demonstrating some of the dialogue, and like reading through if you want to do the slow.
Yeah, I got you.
I went a little too quick there. But this is kind of how you get the story of the game. So in this case, you did well in preparing the meal, handing it over, and then talking to Ollie here. You're able to get information from him that you wouldn't have been able to get if you did really bad in giving him his meal, or if you just like completely ignored him, because otherwise the customers will leave, or they'll just be like really angry at you. So yeah.
That was a big problem we grappled with when I was talking about that idea of integration. One of our initial ideas were we're going to tie the gameplay into the story. Traditionally, maybe you just click a button, you don't get every story beat, it'd be guaranteed. Here we said, what if you can only talk to a certain number of people, give energy and time crunch to this story beat, and then we had questions like, what if you don't talk to the right person? How many people do you need to talk to? Can we hide keys in conversations you need a couple of? And it just spiraled out of control and became a conceptual nightmare, and we had to scale a lot of that back into something that now works pretty well.
We spent a very long time drawing various different flowcharts on whiteboards of like, all right, this could look like this could look like this could look, and just all over the place. But
like 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think rather than the players focusing on decision intelligence, I think that was more of like the devs really learned a lot about decision intelligence. So it was like a really big learning experience for us as a team, I think. But yeah. Any questions?
How does the mesh splicing work for the cutting?
Yeah, so I found a really cool free library online called like Lightsaber something, and basically I give it a plane and I say, here's a mesh, here's a plane. It gives me all of the meshes created out of that. Thankfully here I only have to worry about 2 because they're not convex. That was a problem. And then I just handed a texture, and it's really smart, and it puts the texture on the sliced plane, and I tried to do it myself, and that was not fun. But people that are good at linear algebra figured that out.
Yeah, so KP, who was our last team member, was the one who kind of came up with this idea. And she also did some of the dialogue integration with Yarn Spinner. And we kind of talking about it, some of the kind of D&D like tavern vibes, and just kind of like a story and mystery as a system. I'm sure that she could explain it a lot better, but yeah.
I can mention a couple other games that came up while we were talking about this early on. Were Moonlighter, where you manage a storefront by day, and by night you go into a dungeon to get items to sell in your store. Overcooked for the kitchen gameplay. One of the mini games was inspired by a Google Doodle.
Yeah, a boba pouring game.
And like stop at the right time. So there's some inspiration.
Majora's Mask, as well.
For dialogue stuff.
Yeah, just like the kind of story ideas.
Yeah, just want to say I really enjoyed the mini game slicing the food. Once the knife started going, it's like we cut it in point of because it's great. The beer one was really cool too. Once I figured out that you could overfill it and it just filled over the
Yeah.
I didn't get to play a lot of the story. That's one of the things I was very interested in because I know it's very complex, right? So what are some of the things that was complex that on that system that you didn't think you would be that complex?
So in terms of that story, you mean?
Yeah, like when you have like a lot of different branches and like bringing that into the gameplay.
Yeah, so a lot of it was just how quickly everything gets out of hand. Because, I mean, you think you have 3 people walk into a tavern. And
Set
then,
up to a bad joke, right?
Yeah, yeah. I should have been going somewhere when I wasn't, but and if each person has at least 2 responses, then how many times do you allow it to branch out? And how much like meaningful choice are you giving? Because there are definitely points in the story where more than one passage kind of leads back to the same area. So you're giving choice, but it's a little bit of illusion of choice. But I tried to make sure that most of the time, each choice had something unique, so that the player actually, if they were to replay it, kind of had that feeling of like, okay, what I'm saying is actually making a difference. And that, as well as just kind of like coming together and realizing like each time that you give a person food, there are 3 different states. One that's kind of like good, bad, medium. So coming up with unique responses and like ways that each individual character with their own personality would respond to being handed like an empty mug, or just kind of like being just all those kind of different things that come together to create a big story that actually makes sense.
Cool. So like if you gave a bad food or a bad drink, it would change how they would respond.
Yeah, so there's like, if you give them a good food, they're happy and they're more willing to like actually give you information regarding your brother's disappearance. If you do okay, they're not going to stick around quite as long, but they'll give you a little information. And if you give them bad food, either they're going to start insulting you or they're just going to leave.
Nice. Thank you.
All right.
Beautiful.
Should we go start with what we did?
Yeah, I was going to say, should we go through?
Yeah, no, we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, get on up here, V.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. We are VolaTile. My name is Jack Grace. I originally pitched this game, and then I worked on doing the I'll explain it a little bit more later, but the actual rule set for the game, the cellular automata that's running underneath it, getting that functioning and then getting it so that it could be edited, that rule sets could be interchanged to alter the way the game works, and getting it so that players could make their own rule sets inside of the game. That was all my job. And I did a little bit of balancing early on, but then kind of passed on that role as I started to dig deeper into the systems of it.
I'm Philip Albright. I worked on a lot of the gameplay programming and UI stuff in this game. Basically, anything between these deep systems Jack was working on and the person sitting in the chair, I had a heavy hand in doing. I did a lot of practice with UI work and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm Elliot Schultz. I named the game. I'm kidding. I did name it, but other than that, I worked on quite a few fields. I did a little bit of artwork, did a little bit of gameplay programming, helping out with the UI and a lot of player interactions. And then at the very end, I was helping a lot with balancing.
I'm Thomas Riga, and I know Dr. Jahala said in the beginning that we had no programmer artwork, but as a team of all programmers, our artwork was very programmer-esque, and I was responsible for a good amount of it. I was also responsible for integrating some of the buildings and the wall mechanics in the game that prevent tiles from changing, and also later on trying to get rain to fall, which was actually much harder than I thought it would be. But yeah, I was much less experienced than these guys, so they really helped me out and learn a lot of stuff.
I'm Aaron. I did the procedural generation for the maps. I also worked a bit on the UI for like the building manager, and then I did some general back-end stuff to make our processes easier, such as tools or just classes that we could all extend from to make all of our jobs easier.
I'm Ubby, and I was the sound designer.
Let's see, will it break for us or will it work?
It usually works for the first
wow,
few
look at
slides
that.
and then starts breaking after videos show up.
That's
I think
fair.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. So to start off with a general game idea, because I know not all of you actually got to check out the game, the idea is it is a turn-based city building simulation. Think a very, very simplified version of like an Age of Empires or a Sid Meier's Civ 5. But it's on a grid-based map, which is running a cellular automata the entire time. If you don't know what a cellular automata is, to make it simple, each tile in the game has a terrain type, and every turn it checks its own terrain and the terrain of the tiles next to it. And if there are a certain combination of terrains that exist, it will go, aha, I am going to change to a new terrain next turn. That is the general way that the cellular automata functions. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I won't dig too deep into it here. And each turn, you can press a button and forecast every tile that will change, and you have to adapt to this changing environment every turn to keep your civilization alive. Also, weather can change, which will alter the rules that are run and how the terrain will change over the course of the game. And so it adds a lot of, to say the name of the game, volatility to the experience. You have a limited set of workers who can do things like harvesting resources, building structures, and altering the terrain every turn. And your goal is to work to expand your settlement until you run out of food or all your settlers die and you lose the game. You can also win the game by getting it so that you have 10 settlers alive, which is really hard. Especially on some of the rule sets, it is almost impossible. But on some of the better balanced ones, it is a very fun challenge, I've found.
We should show a trailer now.
Yeah.
You want to show the trailer now? Okay, we can go out of order. Let's do it. I'm not even going to try playing it. It's not worth it.
You know what number of
Our trailer is not as skilled as the Apimancer one at the beginning.
Programmer art.
Programmer art.
Get that audio up. There you go. So now, the first thing we're going to talk about a little bit is a little bit more about that cellular automata. If you don't know what a cellular automata is, here's a great example. This is a very simple one called Conway's Game of Life. It is, every one of these tile has one of two states, on or off, black or white. And based on how many on or off tiles are around a tile, they will change between on or off every single iteration of the automata. So ours isn't running continuously like this, it's running every time you click next turn, but that's a pretty good example of just some of the ways that these types of things can change. So yeah, it is running that based on terrain types, and there are multiple different rule sets that can be used for it. Each one will give a very different way that the world will change over the course of the game. There are 4 default rule sets that exist. They all have their own little quirks that make them more fun in certain aspects, most notable of which being the sinking island rule set, which was shown off in the trailer, where every turn the entire border of your island will sink into the ocean, so the land you have to work with gets smaller and smaller and smaller until there's eventually nothing left, which puts you on a bit of a timer. And additionally, in the game, players can create their own custom rule sets. There's a menu that you can open up and build your own rule set from scratch to determine how the different tiles will interact with each other, and then save it to your computer, and you can now use that rule set when you play the game. So you can fully customize the experience to be exactly the way you want it to be.
Right. So our next system is the procedural map generation. So each time you run the game, you can have a different map. You can also enter seeds in our custom map generator, so that if you have a map you like, you can continue to go back to it. And so each of these maps are generated procedurally using Perlin noise and several different passes of that to make sure they're like as random and also like random but also organized at the same time. And so there's different biomes. So there's desert, grass, mountains, and water. And then around the island is deep water, which will not change throughout the game. And also the island size can fluctuate on different maps. So, and then the biome size, the map size, and the level of randomness of tiles can all be changed in the custom map creator. So you can have gigantic biomes, you can have gigantic maps. Like we've done maps up to 1,000 by 1,000. They take a bit to load, but you can make them. And so all of that can be customized and also generated randomly.
Yeah, so in the game, you can build different sets of buildings to, well, you need to build different sets of buildings in order to stay alive.
Things are merged.
Yeah. There you go. It's at Prociergs.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, so settlers can build these 7 different buildings. They can build lumber mills to passively gain wood throughout the turns. The farm with the cute little cow here is the most important building because it produces the food, and settlers consume food every turn. If you don't have enough food, the settlers die, and you lose the game. The little house, you need to have one of these for every settler. So you need to keep these houses from being destroyed, or else your settlers won't have homes. The very artistically generated walls here, that's a stone wall and a wood wall there. These will prevent the tiles under them from being changed if they were about to be changed. So for example, this grass tile that the stone wall is on might have been changing to a different tile like dirt, and instead of changing, it'll damage the wall. So stone walls have base 3 damage, so they can take 3 damage before getting destroyed, and then the tile can be destroyed, and then wood walls only have 2. And then on the bottom left, there's a mine, which produces stone for the player to use, and the water well produces water for the player to use to build the other buildings and keep them running.
So,
This is mine, yep. Okay, so basic gameplay. Each turn, you have all of your settlers that maybe you need to find, but you can go through and you can select to move your settler, moving up to 5 tiles every turn. There is some pathfinding done to tell where you can actually move to. If there's paths that are blocked to you because there's like unpassable terrain. You can collect a resource depending on what tile you're on. You'll get a different resource. So on rocks, you'll get stone. On forest, you'll get wood. If you're next to water, you'll collect water because you can't stand on water. You can build a structure on each turn, as Tommy just went over, and you can also flip a tile. So depending on what you want to do, how you want to interact with the world, you can decide, okay, let's flip this tile so that I can change the interactions that are going to happen. Maybe a building's about to be destroyed because there's too many desert tiles around your tile. So you go into a desert and then you spend some resources to flip that tile to something else. So it's a balancing act of, do I use my resources for this thing or do I use my resources for something else? And then with the buildings as well, you can destroy them so that you can better manage stuff that's around, because it's really hard to both manage the tile that the building's on and the building at the same time. So you can just like get rid of something to make way for a better plan. Oh, we're doing it again. Yeah.
So, something we learned at ECGC is this game, not many people know what a cellular automata is. When you try to explain the concept of this game to people that aren't computer science or math nerds, it kind of is, they don't really get it. So, as the person working on UI a lot, we had to implement ways for people to interact with this that made it more of a seamless experience. One of those ways that we implemented early on is you can press tab and it enters a forecast mode that shows how all the tiles will change the next turn. So you can kind of get a preview of what is the world going to look like next turn, how do I want to react to that. We also added the functionality to view tile rules. So when you enter this mode, on the right side it shows the rules that will be in place for all tiles across the board. So when you're designing rule sets, you can create global rules. So like one of those for the sinking island one, which was a really easy rule set to implement, is you just add a global rule that says if you're touching the ocean, turn into ocean. And then that causes it to shrink each turn. But then on the left, if you select a specific tile, it tells you all the rules for that specific tile in order of priority as well. So like it is possible for 2 rules to both be satisfied within the same turn, and the higher priority one is going to be higher up on the list. So you know deterministically how to approach those situations. Yeah.
Yeah. The next would be the trailer. We already did that. So, does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
How did you end up coming up with more of a balanced rule set?
It's a lot of experimentation.
Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error. You can kind of, before you design a rule set, think in your head. Like, we can speak about our processes. So, like, after Jack completed his system for being able to use the Unity editor to make rule sets, Elliot and I both kind of jumped on working with that. And my process was like, I'd go tile by tile and think, okay, what dynamics do I want this tile to have? Our default rule set had like up to 7 rules per tile, which is all fine and good. But when I was designing rule sets, I found it easier to think of 3 to 4 rules per tile so that you have like specific dynamics you're envisioning. And then going into the game, seeing how it plays out, giving myself invincibility and spamming the next turn button until and see how the world changes. Yeah. Another dynamic I don't know that we mentioned is the rule sets. You design a rule set for a tile, but there's actually 3 different rule sets per tile per game because we have weather conditions as well. So it's something that like was a good implementation idea because it ends up making the world more volatile. And it makes it where, because cellular automata commonly reach steady states, like Conway's Game of Life being the common example. A lot of them reach steady states. It's fun to find ones that don't, but even ones that don't, you'll end up getting a pattern. So having randomized weather.
For example, that square does not change until you fully reset the board. That is, this little chunk right here has reached a stable state. This one little part in the bottom right is still moving, but the rest of the board is just unchanging forever unless you fully reset everything. That's what he's talking about, reaching a stable state, and that would be kind of boring to play on.
And even with like Conway's Game of Life has only 2 types of tiles. Our game has like many. So, but even with a lot, like you still reach those steady states. And so having weather that is randomized, that completely can flop to a different rule set, is something that not only keeps the game interesting, but also allows you to balance in different ways.
It keeps one tile from getting too overpowered.
You want to talk about how you balanced?
I think we need to get to new questions.
Yeah, Mitchell.
If you guys got to like work on this, say in a month or so, semester or something, like as a full team, I noticed that during the development process as part of the class, you guys could kind of reach like your goal vision, and that kind of stayed stable, and it was mostly just reaching that, getting to the point where you could create your custom rule sets and really fleshing that system out. I'm curious, what other features would you be interested in adding next? Seeing that you mostly got what you wanted.
Walking.
That was a rule set they came up with very early on. Is volcano in the middle. You hit turn 50 or 100 or whatever, it erupts. Lava.
I think one thing is like you said, we reached our, I guess, kind of MVP really early, but we realized that with a game like this, it's impossible to make one rule set that envelops all the ways you can balance it. So customizability was pretty key, I think, in the final envision of what makes the game fun. I think making it to where you can add your own tile types in the rule set would be an interesting idea.
I also, just the last little note on that is, currently you tile types you create are local to your device and can't be shared. I would like it to make a process where it's as simple as you drag the file out of your folder, send it to someone else, they drop it in their folder, now they can play with your rule set.
Also, an in-game map editor, I think would be cool.
Yeah.
Tiago's
been raising his hand every time.
I really like the audio, so I wanted to like hear a little bit more about it, like tools they use and the process for working the team.
I use Logic for all of it, which is like Apple's like GarageBand Pro basically. And the music was all done by me on a little MIDI keyboard, and most of the sound effects I just pulled and found and kind of just edited it as such. But since it was such a simple game, I didn't want to make it like too fancy and just kind of keep it clean.
So how was it to figure out the sounds that you have to work to create? How was the interaction with the team?
Oh, it was super easy because we like sat down the first week and they were like, "This is everything we're gonna need." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So then I just went and I ran with it, and some of it like ended up getting cut just because I think some of the sounds I made were much more complicated for what was actually happening on screen. So once I had an idea of what was actually happening on screen, I was like, okay, let me tone it down a little bit because like the building sound for the building being made, I like had like a full thing that was like hammers hitting and like things happening. They're like, it's just gonna appear on screen. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll cut it down a little bit. I just kind of made it different. So yeah, but it was pretty simple.
I think you said.
Yeah. I just so I really love the product. Like you guys like this was a really good, from the sound design to the levels and all like the interactions. But I wonder, like, on the choice of the procedural generation, it's really awesome that there can be so many different possible states, but from, like, learning how the systems work with each other's perspective, like, did you consider doing, like, a tutorial that kind of introduces tile by tile so you can start understanding the more complex interactions that are happening?
So, I did kind of implement a tutorial in the game to explain the basic game mechanics because there's just a lot going on if you're thrust in. And my tutorial did not do specific tile mechanics. I think, at least my vision when I was making a tutorial, was that I give the players the tools to interact with these systems, and then they can, as they make decisions and they look at all the different rules in the environment, they can start to learn that emergently through gameplay.
We discussed doing a more specific, like, tutorial island where we, like, manually crafted it, but the problem we realized is kind of the point of the game is that there are different rule sets and each one will interact differently. So it was kind of we're not sure how the like very specific tutorial island would look because we would need a different one for each rule set. And so we've discussed kind of ways to maybe make that happen, but in the time we had, we decided it was better just to give the player tutorials of the specific mechanics that exist, and then let them be able to look at the rules if they want to, but then just kind of figure it out themselves.
And if you're viewing it as a tool to teach people about these cellular automata, it's kind of interesting to see how balancing issues like reaching stable states and like huge cascadings of like fire, for example, ends up being less of a hindrance to the balance and more of a tool to teach about the cellular automata itself, because these stable states and these cascading effects and stuff like that are part of the idea. So.
You mentioned in your answer to a previous question that you gave yourself invincibility. Was that like a developer tool that you guys made for testing purposes?
So basically you reach a game over if your settlers are less than 0. And so I said game over only triggers if settlers are less than -1. Which never happens.
Yes.
So the idea of different rule sets, did you ever consider taking it like in a roguelike direction where you would get an upgrade that's like, now when you harvest from a forest, you get more food, but forests grow more. And you're like, oh, this is great, I'm going to choose this rule. Forests are good, and then they consume all your land and run over the rivers.
I
hadn't.
No, I had not thought of that. I like the idea. I think the one thing that probably stopped us from thinking about it is that there's already like 3 simultaneous rule sets for 11 different types of tiles going on, and having those, it was already before we had the tutorial and stuff in the game, hard to teach new people how to play, and having that rule set change mid-game would be, it's a really cool idea though. I think it'd be cool as a kind of level up for players who understand it a lot. Expansion DLC, yeah.
We got one more.
Jack, you mentioned earlier that you can't really like share the rule sets. How are you storing those rule sets that you can't do that?
So Unity has a persistent data path, which is just a location in your file structure. And the way it currently stores it is it takes all of the rule sets, puts them into a data-only class, and then just JSON serialize, write it to a text file. The problem was it was a bit of a like very, very low-end security thing of someone could put any other file in the directory, and it currently just reads. It would have just read every file and tried, and if it read an invalid file or something, that could have caused problems within the game. So right now, whenever you make a rule set in the game, there is one file that is has a static file name, and that one contains a list of all of the other file names that it should try to read. And when you first start up the game, it saves that to your file structure, and then every time a new rule set is made, it updates that file. So whenever the game starts, it goes, let me check the list of names, pulls that file up and goes, okay, here's all of the file paths we should load those. So currently you add another file into the folder, it does nothing. It just sits there. So it would just be getting it so that way it actually tracks extra new files.
Thank you very much. So with that, we will conclude our proceedings. For people that are online, thank you for sticking with us. It's streaming on my laptop, so I did not have immediate access to our stream to check if there were questions there. But we can also answer them later. So we get more viewers coming back to check if we answered anything. But thank you all for coming and spending time with us. We'll have a little bit of time as we wrap up. We have the room for another half an hour. So feel free to ask more questions to the developers here, and have a great rest of your evening.